guys, Joey and I were here. We know that for some people it's Easter this weekend. Some people have already celebrated Easter, and some people are going to celebrate Easter this weekend. And other people, they don't celebrate Easter at all. But we wanted to say Happy Easter. Joey is not really liking these ears, but let's see if we'll get him to say hi. Say hi. We were going to read this story. Joey picked it out. It's called Gaston. I don't have much of an accent, so we're just going to pretend that I do, because otherwise it would be too weird. So we've got Gaston. Mrs. Poodle admired her new puppies, Fifi, Fufu, Oolala, and Gaston. Would you like to see them again? Fifi, Fufu, Oolala, and Gaston. Mrs. Poodle thought so. Oh, perfectly precious, aren't they? Mrs. Poodle thought so too. The puppies grew, as puppies do. 3 were no bigger than teacups. The 4th, however, continued to grow and grow until he was the size of a teapot. Mrs. Poodle took pride in teaching her puppies how to be proper pooches. They were taught to sip, never slobber. Good, well done, very nice. Nice try. They were taught to yip, never yap. Yip, yip, yip. Ruff. And they were taught to walk with grace, never race. Tip-toe, tippy-toe. Whoa! The puppies were also taught how to look pretty in pink, nibble their kibble, and ride in style. Whatever the lesson, Gaston always worked the hardest, practiced the longest, and smiled the biggest. Mrs. Poodle was very pleased with all her puppies, Fifi, Fufu, Oolala, and Gaston. Spring arrived, and the proud mother was eager to show off her darlings. She took them to the park for their very first stroll in public. There was much to see: daffodils, ducklings, dogs. Oh dear, who do we have here? Rocky, Ricky, Bruno, and Antoinette. Would you like to see them again? Rocky, Ricky, Bruno, Antoinette. This was more than a little awkward. The mothers sized up the pups. The pups sized up one another. It seems there's been a terrible mistake, Mrs. Bulldog said, breaking the silence. Oui, oui, Mrs. Poodle agreed, sadly. Whatever shall we do? Mrs. Bulldog could not come up with an answer. I guess we let them decide, she replied at last. Gaston and Antoinette were young, but even they could see that there had been a mix-up. The 2 puppies began to circle around and around the group. Gaston walked with grace. Antoinette raced. Gaston yipped. Antoinette yapped. And when they finally came to a stop, the puppies had traded places. There, that looked right. It just didn't feel right. That evening, Antoinette tried to fit in with her new sisters, but she didn't like anything proper or precious or pink. Phooey! On the other side of town, Gaston tried to fit in with his new brothers, but he did not like anything brutish or brawny or brown. Ick! Antoinette and Gaston weren't the only ones who were having a hard time adjusting. The next morning, Mrs. Poodle forgot all about being proper and raced back to the park. Mrs. Bulldog was already there, waiting with her burly brood. "It seems we've made a terrible mistake," she nearly shouted. "Wee, wee," Mrs. Poodle agreed happily. This time, Gaston and Antoinette wasted no time trading places. There, that looked right, and it felt right, too. From that day forward, the families met in the park every afternoon to play. Rocky, Rico, Bruno, and Antoinette taught the poodle puppies a thing or two about being tough. Likewise, Fifi, Fufu, Ooh La La, and Gaston taught the bulldog puppies a thing or two about being tender. And many years later, when Gaston and Antoinette fell in love and had puppies of their own, they taught them to be whatever they wanted to be. So, books have lots of different meanings, and we talked about symbolism earlier in the year. And so if you enjoyed that story because it was cute, that's awesome. If you enjoyed that story because it was about puppies, that's why Joey picked it too. But I was thinking that maybe that story had a different meaning, and what do you think that might be? Do you think that maybe has something to do with not judging a book by its cover because the dogs didn't look alike, but then when they went with people they looked like, they didn't feel right? Or what do you think? So I'd be curious to know what you think about that. I hope you have a great weekend, whether or not you're celebrating the holiday. And if you are celebrating the holiday and it looks a little different than it usually does for you, it's okay if you're a little disappointed, but just know that that doesn't mean that it's any less fun. It just means that it's different. And Joey and I hope that you have a great weekend. Bye.